Hi. So happy to be back on Instagram Live. Okay, one more minute and then I'm gonna start. This is gonna be an awesome night. I'm very excited. Okay, I'm gonna get started. It's 8:31. We have to be on time. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another SBH Fertility Instagram Live. Can't believe I'm back on this. So excited. This is going to be an amazing night. Everybody knows how much SBH Fertility does for me and how much it holds a place in my heart. They do everything for me. I was a volunteer, I was a client, and they mean the world to me. And I'm so excited to be doing this. I'm honored to be moderating tonight's Instagram Live. SBH Fertility is always there for you. They will hold your hand. They will do everything for you through infertility, pregnancy loss, postpartum, and they're just a phone call away. And I know they were my first phone call when I needed them. And you can call them and they'll be there for you no matter what. And they're amazing. And this past summer, they had a wonderful, amazing event. It was phenomenal. I have no other words to say. 5 women got up and very bravely, shared their story about what they went through, whether it was for infertility, postpartum, pregnancy loss, all different, amazing, phenomenal stories. I don't think there was a dry eye in the place. I know I was hysterically crying for the whole time. I mean, I'm always crying about infertility, but it doesn't matter. It was amazing. And it was insane. It was also very intense, which is okay because infertility and pregnancy loss and postpartum and all these things are very intense and they can get very intense. But it's not always like that. It's usually not like that. I know it seems that way, especially with my life was a little intense also. It's not always that way. And we just wanted to come on here tonight and show you that infertility and going to a fertility doctor and transitioning to a fertility doctor isn't as scary as it sounds and isn't as scary as maybe hearing these stories sounded to you. Just because you go to a fertility doctor doesn't mean that you're going to do IVF. You're not going to walk into the office and you're going to wheel you straight to a retrieval and say, okay, let's get your eggs. Like, that's not how it works. There's so many steps before that. Just because you're going to that office doesn't mean you're going to end up there. And another point I want to say is that just because you go to a fertility doctor, it doesn't make you infertile. I'm going to say that again because I think that's very important. Just because you go to a fertility doctor does not make you infertile. It's very important to understand that because the initial shock of saying you need to go to a fertility doctor is probably the scariest thing you'll ever hear. And tonight we'll hear from someone who went through something like that. We'll talk to Cyndi I used her maiden name, Cyndi Mizrahi, who will share her experience of going to a fertility doctor, her initial reaction and how that was for her. Her story is so interesting. She's a volunteer at SBH Fertility. She's amazing. We love her. She's basic spot, always wearing her sweatpants. And then we'll speak to Dr. Alexis Melnick, who is a fertility doctor, I believe at Weill Cornell Medicine. And she will give us the basics 101 of fertility doctors. Why should I go to a fertility doctor? When should I go to a fertility doctor? How do I know when I should transition there? I get there. What am I expecting? What's going to happen to me? What am I going to do? She's going to this is so important for everyone to listen to because it can happen to anyone at any time in their lives and it's going to be amazing. So I'm so excited. I'm going to invite Cyndi on to the live and she's going to share her story with us. Okay. Let's see when she gets it. There we go.
Hi.
Stop.
What's
doing?
up? Cute little intro.
Okay, so I'm so excited to have you. This is gonna be awesome. I I guess me and everyone are looking forward to hearing your story. So I guess get right into it. Tell us a little bit of everything.
Hi, I'm Cyndi Mizrahi. Whoever doesn't know me, but no one ever knows my face. Basically, I got married at 23. Dated my husband for like 2 years. I was considered like older in some people's eyes. We got married. We were just like not in a rush to have a baby. Like a year went by. We were having like going on vacations, having fun, and decided, okay, I'm gonna go for it. We'll just see what happens. And I was not going to have a baby, but I wasn't not ready. Because are you ever really ready? Like, so I said, let's just see what
Yeah, I was
happens.
gonna say.
Yeah, like no one's ever really ready. So basically, I then for 8 months, I backtrack for a second. Like my periods were never like normal periods. Now I know that, but like for me, it was normal back then. Like it would come every 6 weeks. It would come. I would skip a month. I would have crazy pains. I never went to school on the first day. Like it was known. I would sit in my house in fetal position. Like I didn't go to school. It was known.
And did you ever think something was up, or it never even crossed your mind?
I never crossed my mind because like I was little. You don't talk to your friends about periods like back then.
Right.
Like no, like now, okay, I'm an open book. I'll tell my friend anything, but like I don't know, when you're little, you're not talking about it.
Wait, Cyndi, they're saying you're a little bit choppy. Is your Wi-Fi on? Maybe turn your Wi-Fi off.
Yeah, it's both. Okay, better?
Yeah, you're better. Okay, good.
Okay.
Sorry. Okay.
No, so basically like to me that was like a normal period. I didn't know that it wasn't
Right.
normal. So now I'm trying to get pregnant, and it's like 8 months are going by, and like, oh, I skipped a period this month. Oh, does that mean I'm pregnant? I would go take a pregnancy test, negative.
Right.
Oh, I would get my period a few weeks later. Okay. 6 weeks later, another one. Oh, I skipped again. Does that mean I'm pregnant? I would take another pregnancy test. 8 months go by.
Well, how was that? How was that feeling every single month? Wait, I
It was
lost you.
torture.
Yeah, I'm gonna say like every month taking a
Good.
test, thinking you're pregnant, and not. Yeah.
Oh my God, torture. Every month is like, feels like a year. Every
Right.
day, like, it's just like such a long process, but it wasn't even like I was like in my head, like, okay, I need to have a baby. It was just like, I don't know. Oh, I didn't have my period this month. Oh, so maybe I happened to get pregnant. Like,
Right.
it
Yeah.
was just like a thought that just kept coming and coming, and it was just like was negative and negative. So 8 months go by, and I was like, okay, let me just go to my doctor, like just see what's up. So we're talking,
Or
and
you speak to anyone else that said like, okay, 8 months is a good time to go see a doctor, or in your head you said, okay, I think 8 months, it's maybe it's time.
like I have friends that have gone through fertility, so like I like support is like a huge thing. So like I would remember like calling my friend and like speaking to her about things, and like it was like, yeah, why don't you just go check that? Like, why not?
Right.
It wasn't like, oh, you for sure have an issue, but it's like it can't hurt. Why not
Right.
go?
Can hurt.
And I'm like, okay, I'm gonna go.
Yeah.
So I went to my regular doctor, and I tell her everything, and she's like, honestly, like it's only been 8 months. We like to wait a year, but because of your history, like let's do some blood work, check your levels, do a sonogram, and like let's see what happens. So I said, okay. We do blood work, whatever. And then I leave. She's like, okay, I'm gonna call you with the results. I'm like,
Were
okay.
you at this point?
I what?
Were you nervous about results, or you didn't really?
No, like I didn't like think. I don't know. Like I was confused. I didn't know what to think. Like, is this gonna get bad? Is it gonna be okay? Like, what's gonna happen? Like, I don't know. She wasn't
Right.
like, she's not like a worrying person. So I wasn't sitting there like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, like every day. But
Right.
it was just like, I don't know what's gonna be.
Right. Okay.
So So she ends up calling me, which to this day, I still don't know why. She called me on a Sunday, which is like so random for a doctor to call on a Sunday. Like, call Monday morning. Like, okay. She calls me Sunday. I remember vividly. I'm in Deal, and I'm only 2 years married at this point. So it's like, I'm still awkward by my in-laws. Like, you know, like you're not so comfortable yet as I am today, 8 years later, you know?
Right. Yeah.
So, I remember getting a phone call. Like, I run to my room, I slam my door. And she's like, hi, Cyndi, how are you? I was like, hi, oh my God. She's like, I'm sorry to call you on a Sunday, but we got your results and I want to call you personally. But like, I know I'm going to be hectic in the office tomorrow. I'm like, okay. She's
That's
like, so
worried when you
your
heard that.
numbers are
Like,
off, meaning like one level is higher than the. I was like, okay, like, where's this going? Like, I
yeah.
don't know. I just didn't know where anything is going.
Right.
So, she's like, your levels are off enough to, and like with what you were telling me and your symptoms and everything, like, you have PCOS, and I want to recommend you going to a fertility doctor.
Before we start, I just want to explain what PCOS is. Do you want me to explain it or do you want to explain it?
Yeah,
I'll
yeah,
explain it. PCOS, for
no,
everyone,
you could say it.
it's Polycystic Ovarian Syndrome. It's very common. I feel like I know everyone who I know has it. Basically, it's something that affects how your ovaries work. So like you were having irregular periods, like that's a symptom of it, or you have higher levels of different hormones like that you said you had also, and all these different things. And it could also cause your ovaries to look like cystic and have all different things around it. So that affects, a lot of the times it affects a woman's fertility. Obviously, if you're having irregular periods, that also affects your fertility. So they go hand in hand. So yeah, sorry, continue.
No, so she says, okay, I want you to go to this doctor and part of RMA. RMA is like a huge, like,
Yeah.
fertility doctor. There's like 7 or 6 different offices in the city. I want you to go to the one that happens to be one in the same building as her, and she's like very good friends with the head of that office. I want you to go to him, and let's take it from there. Okay. She's like, okay, the secretary's gonna call you with the number and everything in the morning. I'm like, okay. I like hang up. Don't know what to react. Happens to be, I remember like my
Yeah.
parents they were coming home the next morning, so I was like, okay, I'm gonna push this to the side. It was like back when I was still going to parties on Sundays and deal. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna push this to the side, deal with this tomorrow. Like, I'm just gonna go with my husband to the party and just like
What
not
was,
think about it.
sorry, I want to backtrack for 1 second. What was it like hearing from your doctor, I want you to go to a fertility specialist?
It was
Like
very like me.
making, oh, right.
It was like really? Like now, okay, when she was saying, yeah, your levels are off and your periods and this and that, I'm like, okay, I guess it makes sense. But I was like, me? Like I know friends that have this and that, and it's like, thank God I didn't have crazy, like I didn't feel like I wasn't ovulating, or I don't know, like I just didn't, I was just
Yeah.
like, I just kept saying me, like, also like, thank God, like my mom didn't have any issues, like I don't know, I just didn't think of anything.
It sounds like you were
Uh,
like more confused than anything. You were just like,
yeah,
what?
and also like I know what it like. I have friends that like went through fertility, so like the idea of like, okay, now you have to go through a fertility doctor and you're gonna start doing like all this testing and stuff. I was like, wait, like that's gonna be
Right.
me. Like I have a
Yeah.
whole journey ahead of me. Like where's this going?
Yeah.
Like
Like,
I didn't know what the future was.
also, it's like, this is so many, there's so many different ways that this could end up. I could,
Exactly. Thoughts are
yeah.
running through my head. Like, am I gonna have to do IVF? Am I gonna have to do the egg retrieval? Am I like all these thoughts that like I know people that did. I'm like, is that gonna be me? Like, but also like I don't want to think about it yet. Like, day, and then I just like I needed like a minute to myself to process, and like I'll think about it tomorrow. Like I just didn't want to like talk about it. I don't even think I told
Right.
anyone.
So you
Like
didn't,
no, I think I just like I think maybe I told my husband. Like I probably told my husband. He was just like, what? Like also like he doesn't talk about it with his friends. Like
right. No.
back then, none of his friends had kids yet. I mean, so like
Right.
it wasn't like a conversation.
Right.
Um, so I don't know. It was just like I ignored it
Right.
for
You
24 hours.
like, you need to go to a fertility doctor. You just said, okay, I can't sit and think about this right now. Like you said, it's the summer. I'm going to a party. I'm not. This is not something I need to put on my head.
Yeah, I was just like, I'm just gonna have fun,
Right.
dance,
Okay.
and tomorrow's a new day. Like I could tackle this tomorrow. Like why do I don't talk about it today?
Right.
So now the next morning comes. I remember my parents got home and I called my mom and she's like, okay, make an appointment. I'm going to come with you. Like, don't worry, we got this. I'm like, okay, we got this. I called the doctor. They're like, hi. I was like, oh, my gynecologist recommended I come. My levels are off, whatever. She's like, okay. The next appointment's in like about 8 weeks. I'm like, 8 weeks. I'm like, hold
Yeah.
on. It's already 8 months. Now you're telling me another 2 months. I'm like, okay, so that's already 10. Who knows what the future is going to be? And then to be pregnant is 9 months. So like I start spiraling in my head. I'm like, wait, this is like, who knows how much more of a process I have going ahead of me.
Right. So what, like when you were first calling the doctor, what were you saying in your head? Like, I'm going to go this week, I'm going to see the doctor, and then I'm going to fix everything and leave? Or you were a little more, like, what were you thinking when you first called?
Like when I first called, I'm like, okay, like I'm just going to go see the doctor probably next week. Like
Right.
have an appointment, go and let's take it from there. Let's start the process. Let's just go head on. Like that's it. Next week we're starting. Like it's already 8 months for a start. Like I didn't think there's going to be a 2-month delay before it even gets seen. So I'm like, okay. I'm like, I have a question. She's like, yeah. If anyone cancels by any chance, like, can you just like write me down as like a like just as a maybe, like you could throw me in somewhere?
Right.
Of course, no problem. I'm like, okay. I called my mom. I was like, hey, ma, the next appointment is October, whatever. She's like, okay. Like, she's like, what are we gonna do? Like, it is what
Yeah.
it is. Like, there was out of my control.
But
But in
did
my head, I was like, how?
they ever mention anything about like, oh, how long are you trying for, or any of these questions, or
Nothing.
nothing?
It was just like make an appointment.
Okay. Just to make
Like,
the point.
oh, you want to see the doctor? Okay. Like that was it.
Right.
No question.
Probably like so frustrating. Like, okay, I'm ready to go. I got over it. You waited your 24 hours. I'm ready to go see a fertility doctor. Oh, sorry. You need to wait another 8 weeks. Like, you need to sit with this for 8 more
Yeah.
weeks. I can't even, like that.
Like I'm thinking like, what is the overall process going to be now? Like, is this going to be another 2 years? Like, is this going to be 6 months? Is it like what? That's what I kept thinking. Like, I was just like getting so nervous thinking about like the what ifs and like what's
Yeah.
going to be. So an hour goes by. I was working at a law firm back then, and my mom was working as a social worker in a public school, and I get a phone call. Hi, Cyndi. This is so and so from RMA. We actually have a cancellation. Would you be able to be here in an hour? This is
Oh
1
my
hour.
God.
I just called and they said 8 weeks. I'm like, what? Today?
1 hour.
She's like, I was like, okay. I called my mom. I said, Ma, they can take us right now. She's like, okay. We both like jet out of work. We
Yeah.
both get in the car. We run to the city like as fast as we
And
could get.
your husband? Where's your husband's head at this point?
I don't know. Like, like he was just like he was just like, okay. Like I don't think he fully understood
Right.
what this entailed. But also
Right.
at the end of the day, like those 8 months of like, oh, I took a pregnancy test. Oh, I this, like, not that it didn't affect him, but it affects us differently. Like I'm
Yeah.
the one seeing the negative test. I'm the one that's skipping the period. I'm the one that's sitting there and like getting let down.
Yeah.
And it's like not that he's not getting let down. It's just like a different
It's
letdown,
different.
you know?
No, that
Like
you're right.
he's not waiting to see if there's going to be a positive or blood. Like he's not waiting for that
yeah.
moment. He's just
No.
like, okay, when it happens, it happens.
Right. I love that.
Chilling.
Yeah.
Like 25 years old. Like he's not rushing to have a baby, but he's also like not rushing to have a baby. Like he was in between, you know.
Yeah. It's definitely different men and women.
Different, but I think like as the process started, like it did affect him. Like
Right.
I
Sure.
think initially like it's oh, like a what? Like, what do you mean? Like, what do you have to do? Like,
Right. And
also
what's
like
there? Like, what does that even mean? What does that have to do with anything?
yeah, like also it's different. Like girls speak. Like
Yeah.
I know girls that went through this. Like, does he
Yeah.
know guys that went through this? I don't know. Like, it's not really a conversation among men. Like,
Right. Yeah.
especially like a 25-year-old guy who's married for 2 years. You know, like it's
Right.
different. It's just like a different like
Different.
feeling. Um, yeah. So we run to the city and we get there, and I'm in the waiting room and I'm like so anxious, but I'm also so relieved that like I'm there.
Right.
And I meet with the doctor and he's like, "Hi, how are you? Okay, so based on your numbers, it looks like you have PCOS." And he started asking me like, "Oh, do you have these symptoms?" And he's like, "Yeah." He's like, "Did you have irregular periods?" I'm like, "Yeah." "Oh, are you hairy?" I'm like, "Yeah, actually." Like my arms are like apes. Like I was laughing and he was like,
Right.
he's like, "Do you have acne?" I was like, "Yeah." Like I had so many symptoms that I didn't even know. Like I didn't know that I had these symptoms, but I just thought it was just part of my life of going through like puberty and stuff. I don't know.
Yeah. So how would you know? You know,
Exactly.
like
Like, not just
it's
not
not
something that,
like you don't talk among your friends like, oh, you also have hairy arms. Oh, you
yeah.
must have PCOS. Like that's not. Nobody talks like that. You know.
Oh,
Like
okay, that means you definitely have PCOS,
yeah,
like, you know?
exactly.
And also like now if you
How
tell someone
was that like sitting in his office? Like you go into
so
you walk from the beginning. Like you walk into this office. Let's say the waiting.
just walk in and you're sitting in a waiting room and it's like everyone there is for the same reason. Like everyone's there has a common denominator of you're here to try and get pregnant
Right.
for whatever reason. And it's like a little bit of a relief that like, but it's also like, I don't know, like, did that person have a loss? Like, did that person this? Like, you're also like trying to think of people's stories, but like, are they thinking about my story? Like, you know what? Like, it's very like, it's like a little touch there.
Comforting almost like okay, I'm not alone. Like look how many people are in this
Oh,
waiting.
like it was strangers, but like it happened to be like, I remember the first day I went there was like a lot of Jews there. And I was like, oh, like we're all in the same boat. Like,
Right.
a sense of home a little, even though I don't know them from a hole in the wall, but like you just feel comfortable, like knowing that like other people are going through it and look, they're fine. They're
100.
here.
Yeah.
They're gonna go through the process. You're gonna go through the process and we're gonna be okay. Like, but also in my head, I'm like thinking like, what's gonna be? Like, I'm so nervous, but I'm also like comforted. It's like it's a weird, like it's a weird
Right.
feeling. Um,
100%. Yeah.
yeah. So but I went into his office and he's like, okay, so let's do a sonogram, an internal sonogram, and like see what's going on with your ovaries and stuff. And we'll take it from there. So I'm like, okay. Never did this before. Like, what's an internal sonogram? I'm like, okay. Literally, like, a wand up me. I'm like, hi, okay. And he shows me that like on my ovaries is all like, it looks like a pearl necklace. He's like, see, that's PCOS.
Yeah.
He's like, that means you're not really ovulating and that's why you're not getting pregnant.
Right.
I was
So
like,
heard that were you like, oh my God. Okay, so there's a reason for all of this.
yes, like as much as it's like, wait, what? I have like an issue. It's also like, okay, at least that's explaining what's going on. Like,
Right.
okay, at least that's some sort of like, okay, there's
That
a
can be resolved also.
yeah, like it's also like because he said it on the spot of what it wasn't like a guessing game.
Right.
So I had a little bit of like relief that he knew from the second I walked in, okay, this is what you have. And this is why you're not
Right.
pregnant for X amount of months. Like it was a lot of like, okay, I can do this. So now he's like, okay, get dressed, let's go back into my office. I'm like, okay. So I go back to this office, and this doctor was like a teddy bear. So it was also comforting, and he was also Jewish. So like it had like a vibe of like a grandpa, even though he's not like old, but like that like
Yeah.
yummy feeling. Like, okay, like I could like he was comforting, he's giving me tissues and like it was just
Right.
like it was comfortable. I never met him before, but I wasn't like I wasn't awkward.
So that probably made the experience a little bit better for you also. Like you didn't feel like you were walking who was like just not compassionate and not comforting and
Had
everything.
emotion, so friendly, he was nice, he was cracking jokes. Like he's like, we're gonna get you pregnant. It's just like depends on how you want to get pregnant. Like he was like making
Right.
light of
Okay.
the situation in a way that was like, okay, he's hopeful, so I'm hopeful. So like that
Was
first
your
visit was like
Was your experience there different of how you imagined it would be, like before you went in?
I don't think I had an expectation. I just think that I was too nervous
Right. That
and
makes
like overwhelmed to like think about what's going to be.
right.
But walking in and having that like connection made it already like easier
Right. Okay,
and
that's
like from like the get-go.
right.
So basically he says, okay, we're going to start doing like all the testing because you have to just make sure like everything's working properly, whatever. We're going to do all the testing, and then basically like within 2 months you'll finish like the testings. Like some tests you have to do like third day of your periods, you have to wait for your period, this, that. After I finish everything, come back and we're going to talk about the next step. I'm like, okay. So I'm running for a blood test. I'm doing this. I'm doing everything. Okay, thank God it's all finished. I called to make my appointment to see the doctor again. Great. I come in. They say, okay, thank God everything is good. Like literally the only thing is that you have PCOS, so you're not really ovulating. You have two options. He's like, you could either do letrozole and an Avidril shot. Do you want to
Do you
explain?
want to explain what that is?
Okay, so
Yeah, you can. I
basically,
never did it.
it's you take. So most people probably heard of Clomid, which is the letrozole and Clomid are. I'm not a doctor, so I don't like. Don't quote me 100%, but they're similar. Just letrozole is a little bit stronger. But basically, you take a pill for like 5 days, and you do blood tests and you do sonograms and stuff to make sure that the eggs are growing and the follicles are growing and precisely like for what they should be. And then you could do like then they tell you like, okay, go home and have intercourse. Like, okay, you'll be ovulating within the next 24 or 48 hours. And then like as an extra cushion, like there's a thing called an Avidril shot, which you insert a shot into your stomach and it releases the egg. So it's
Okay.
just added bonus of you like having a little bit more of a chance of getting pregnant.
Okay.
So he gave me that option as well as an IUI with the Avidril shot. So IUI is when they insert your husband's sperm into you.
Okay. Well, it's still in you, so it's
Yeah.
completely different from IVF. Okay. And did you know about this before, or it was completely new
Like
to
I
you?
vaguely knew from like some of my best friends type, but I didn't know all the details, the nitty gritty details. I didn't know like all about the blood test at 6 a.m. and this and that. Like I didn't know about everything. I just like knew about Clomid. I knew
Right.
like the three major like terms I knew, but I didn't really know like all the details of what goes into everything. So he's like, okay, like go home, talk about it with your husband, like let me know what you want to do. Regardless, you have to wait for like your next period in order to start the process. So I said, okay. So now I come home and in my head, I'm like, okay, obviously I'm doing the IUI. Like there wasn't even a thought in my head
Why was
because
it?
it's a little more of a higher percentage of getting pregnant. So it's like I already went through the 8 months of trying, and then I went through the 2 months of going through all the testing, and now I'm finally here. And it's like if I have a slighter chance of getting pregnant, why wouldn't I take that chance? Like to me, it was a no-brainer. I'm like, okay, I'm doing the IUI. Like I don't think of it as a bad thing. I just thought it was like an extra cushion to help me
Right.
get pregnant, and it's like, why not?
Right.
Oh, I come home and joke's on me. Like my husband had the complete opposite reaction to me.
Was he was a doctor with you when he was explaining all this to you, or you went home and
No,
explained it?
my mom told me.
Okay.
I felt like I don't know why my husband didn't come. Honestly, I don't know. My mom just came to all those appointments. She came to all my blood tests.
Yeah.
It just worked out. I don't know honestly, but so he was like, "What do you mean? Why are you skipping step A? Why going straight to B? Like slow down." Like, why are you rushing? It's fine. It's going to work out. It's all from Hashem. Like, he's going on a whole thing. And I'm like yelling at him. I'm like, what do you mean? Why if you have a higher chance? Like, I don't know the exact percentage, but I remember like telling him the percentages. I'm like, you have a higher chance of this. Why
Right.
wouldn't you do it? Like, why are you staying here when you could go
But
there?
how did that feel to like be like, okay, I'm ready. I saw a fertility doctor. I'm so excited. I'm doing IUI. Let's do this. You get home and he's like, no, like not happening. Like
So I was like, no,
walking.
defeat is not the word. Because like literally every day feels like a week. Every week feels like a month. Every month feels like a year. Like it was just, it was like it just felt like, no. Like what?
Right.
Like we're not going to see eye to eye on this? Like I don't believe it.
Yeah. Did you
And
feel out defeated, like you said?
yeah,
You just
like I felt like, what? Like really? Like you don't agree? Like I couldn't understand. I was so upset. I remember like really being upset and like crying and like being hurt and just like not understanding.
yeah, no, that sounds very hard. To
For
be
hours like
end of the day, like yeah, you are going through the treatments, but like somebody else has to agree with you on it because
right.
they're your spouse. Like it's
And I could look back on it and understand that, but like when you're in it,
yeah,
it's you and only you that you could think about. Like I'm the one who's going through the blood test and I'm the one who's this, and like
yeah,
you're not gonna take that extra chance. Like I couldn't understand
right.
how we weren't like matching up on that. So basically we said, okay, let's take 24 hours, like sleep on it, like let's just reconvene tomorrow. So I'm like, okay. So
It seems
now
like that was important to you, like the 24 hours. Like, you know what I mean? Like with every step, like, okay,
things. I notice like as
yeah,
I get older, I realize I need to process things. Like I need to just like let it sink in. Let all sides to the story. Let me see his side. Let me see my side. Like let me take it in. Like I noticed that like it's definitely something that's like just helpful to me as a person and also to like my marriage.
but I also think that's very important in fertility.
Remember,
I feel like you're getting of information thrown
100%.
at you times of the day, like do this and do that, and even if it's not from doctors, from all different types of people,
Yeah.
and like can't just like make decisions at the moment. Like you need that 24-hour processing. Like I think it's very smart that you kept doing
Also, like if I made a decision on the spot, like I probably just would have done IVF at that point and just be like, okay, let's just do it. Like, you know what I mean? Like you're so like irrational at the time because you just like you want this like you just want it over with. Like you just don't want to like take
I
everything like
no, I have the opposite problem.
you're like I need to do this, I need to do this now.
4 seconds to think over things. So like I'm like love that you keep saying I took 24 hours, I took 24 hours, you know, like it's really important. Like make that note that like, and then you'll continue your story and explain why it was so important.
Yeah. No, so the next day, whatever, I remember like we're eating dinner and whatever we're talking, and he said that he's very close with like some rabbis. He ended up speaking to one of them he's like very close with, and he was like, okay, like why don't you compromise? Why don't you do this? Like do the letrozole for like 1 or 2 months and see what happens. And if it doesn't work out, then take Cyndi's route. Like, why
Right.
don't we do both?
I love that he went to a rabbi though. Like I think that that's a good step. Like
Yeah, like
when you
talking about how like men process things differently. Like
yeah
went out and spoke to someone was great because like I was doing the same. I was talking to my friend, and I
yeah
was just like, believe that he doesn't want to do this. Like the way we were like it's just so different. But so like at the moment I was like 2 months, like 2 more months. Like I already went through this. What's like 2 more months is like I don't know. Should I really do it? But like at the end of the day, what's 2 months? Like when you're in it, of course, 2 months feels like a year. But like when I look back on it, what's the difference? 8 months, 10 months. Like it's fine. So I said, okay, let's compromise. We'll do it for 1 to 2 months. But if it really doesn't work by the second month, like I'm out. I'm telling you, we're going my route. And okay, I said, okay, it's up to Hashem, this, that.
end up at IUI, you're like, I don't even think the electoral is gonna work. I'm gonna end up at IUI.
Oh, yeah, 100%. Like I didn't even think about it. I was just like, okay, I'll give him this 2 months to make him happy because like at the end of the day, it is Shalom Bayit, and it's also like he's going through it as much as I am, whether I want to see it or not. Like
Yeah.
he
No,
deals with me. Like he also deals with me and my feelings and me talking about it. Like it's affecting him also, like in both ways.
yeah.
So I said, okay, compromise, we'll do it. So now I go back to the doctor, I get the medicine, I do it. I go in for the epidural shot in my stomach. He's like, okay, go have intercourse in the next 24, 48 hours, and you'll come back in 2 weeks for a blood test, and we'll let you know if you're pregnant or not. I'm like, okay. 2 weeks was maybe like took off 20 years of my life. Like those 2 weeks were like traumatizing. Like every day I'm like looking like, is it the day yet? Is it the day yet? Like
And
horrible.
it's horrible. Yeah, I hear you.
Like every day was like, okay, we're almost there. We're almost there.
Yeah.
So I remember at the blood test, like 6 a.m. I jetted out of my house. I got there. I do my blood test, and in the office that I went to, like everyone had like their own nurse. So my nurse told me like, okay, she's gonna call me in the afternoon with my results. So I'm like, okay. I go back. I go to work. I'm sitting there like on edge of my seat all day with my phone next to me, like I'm like hyperventilating, like waiting.
I'm really listening to the story. Like I can't imagine like really, like
I was just like, what? When is this gonna happen? Is it 1 o'clock she's gonna call me? Is it gonna be 5 o'clock? Is it 3 o'clock? Like, when are you calling me? So finally she calls. I'm like, sense of relief. She's like, I'm like, okay, hi. She's like, hi. I have good news, but also bad news. I'm like, what? I remember I was in the conference room in my office and like running around the conference table. And I was like, what do you mean good but bad? She's like, which do you want me to start with? I'm like, the good. Like, so she's
yeah.
like, okay, so like I'm really happy to tell you you're pregnant. I was like, oh my God, I am. She's like, but your numbers are very low and it might be a chemical pregnancy. So we want to come back in 2 days. And I was like, chemical pregnancy? I'm like, what is that? Like, I never even heard of this term before. I was like, wait, so I am pregnant? I'm not pregnant? She's like, come back in 2 days and we'll see if your numbers go up and like, we'll take it from there. Hangs up. I was like, what? Like, what? I'm like Googling chemical pregnancy. I tell my, I gotta go. Like, I jet out of the office. He's like, is everything okay? I'm like, I gotta go. He's like, okay. I'm like Googling it. Like, I call my friend. I was like, okay, so like, I am pregnant, but like, she said it might be chemical pregnancy. Like, what is that? She's like, oh, I had one. I'm like, you had one? Like, this is the thing. Like, what is it?
Yeah.
So basically, she said that a chemical pregnancy is like, it's a miss very, very, very early on. Like, most people don't even know they're pregnant. They're like 4 or 5 weeks pregnant type. And you end up just getting like your period of like a week later and it's a little heavier. Like, a lot of
Right.
people don't even know they have. But because when you're going through fertility and you're being monitored so closely, that's usually why you know you're having one.
Right. So you're probably your head is probably all over the place right now.
Yeah. So I'm like, wait, so like I am pregnant? I'm not pregnant? Am I gonna be pregnant? Like, I like called my husband. I was like, okay, so like we're pregnant, but like I don't know if we're gonna be staying pregnant. He's like, what? Like, we just
Yeah.
like didn't know. Like, also like she's a nurse, she's not the doctor, so like she's just there to
Right.
give you the facts and hang up. Like,
And
she's there to tell you your numbers and like bye. So I'm like, okay, like I didn't know what I was supposed to do for the next 2 days. So then I went 2 days later and like they went for the blood test, 6 a.m. again, same thing. They called me in the afternoon. Thank God your numbers doubled. I was like, okay. She's like, but you're still not in the clear because you're only like 4 or 5 weeks pregnant. Like, we have to do your blood every 2 days. So I'm like, okay. So from 5 weeks to 9 weeks, I was going in every single 2 days to either the city or to the Brooklyn office, getting blood work to like make sure my numbers were like good. Thank God, 1,000,001 times.
wow.
They said next appointment you can hear the heart rate, the heartbeat. I'm like, a heartbeat? I tell my husband, I'm like, you have to come.
Yeah.
He comes to the office. He's like, he's so nervous. I'm nervous. And like, I remember like the screen comes up and he's like, okay, so you see that? Like, that's your baby. I'm like, I'm pregnant? Like, it was just like, what? And then I remember my husband being like, okay, so is there one or two? Like, he kept asking, like, is there one or two? And he's like, there's only one. Like, there's one sack. He's like,
Yeah.
okay, sure. Like, you have higher chances when you take medicines and stuff. So they told me, like, my chance of twins was, like, I don't remember exactly, but, like, a little bit higher than a regular. And like, he was just paranoid that I was going to have twins. So, like, I remember him asking. All I just remember, like, that heartbeat. And I was just, like, hysterical crying. I was like, well, like, this was worth the last 11 months, 12 months. Like, wow.
And was it even a thing with you and your husband anymore, like letrozole, IUI, or was like at this point it was like, who cares?
Joke. Like,
Yeah.
we're pregnant. Who cares that would happen? Who cares
Yeah.
about the it was just out the window. All we
Right.
focus on is that, are the numbers going up? Oh my God, thank God they're up. Like, we're having a baby.
Right.
And then he's like, okay, you're 9 weeks. Like, you graduated. You could go to your gynecologist. I'm like, what? Already? Like, bye? He's like, yeah, bye. Like, you have that comfort of, as much as like it's exhausting going for blood work every 5 seconds and waking up and running for a sonogram and this, it's also like the best feeling ever because you know that you're being monitored closely. Like, who knew if I was gonna have a chemical pregnancy? Like, it's just like that comfort also of going there every minute. And he's like, okay, bye. I'm like, what do you mean bye? Like, I was like crying. I was like, you're letting me go? Like, I was so sad. But it was a good sad. It was like the best thing possible.
Yeah.
Thank God. Not 8 months later, I had my I can't breathe from him because like what I went through to get him. I love his life. Roger, he's 5.5. Like, can't breathe for my child. And then you forget it. Like, you give birth and you just forget about all that. Like, everything you went through was just like, okay, whatever. I went through it. It's fine. Like,
I had my baby.
Yeah. Like, so now Roger's 1. I'm not ready to have a baby, but I'm just, I don't know. I don't know what I was thinking, but I just decided I'm going off birth control. Didn't tell my husband, but like I did not tell him. Like, it wasn't a conversation, but it wasn't like, we both knew I can't get pregnant. So like, okay, big deal.
Yeah, let me just get off birth. Yeah. Famous life.
So, like, exactly. 6 months go by and I'm like, okay, I think it's time to call the fertility doctor. Like, it's been 6 months. I've been on birth control. Like, let's just start.
And were you like, okay, I'll call the fertility doctor, or do you feel like you went through like the, oh my God, again, I have to call a fertility doctor?
I feel like it was routine for me now. Like, okay, BH, like, have my son. Like, I love him to death. Like, okay, now, like, this is how I got him. The way I got him, not at all. Like, meaning, like, I don't think, like, it's so, like, oh my God, you have to go to fertility doctors to get pregnant. Like, I didn't think that like that. I just think, okay, so I just need a little help. Like, thank God it's not, I don't have to go through like hoops and struggles and a million and one things. Like, it was pretty easy once I started the process because they worked on my first try. So like, I was just like, okay, now I'm just going to go back and take it from there. So now, I make an appointment. They tell me again 2 months, but this time I wasn't stressed. I said, okay, it's been 2 months. Oh, it's another 2 months. Like, it was routine at this point. I wasn't like, oh my God, you know, like, I wasn't
fertility doctor, I need to do this, I need to do
that.
Like,
this is how I'm gonna get pregnant, and it's gonna be okay. Like, it's fine. Like, it is what it is. Like, I really can't stress it enough. Like, I spoke to my friends like that went through things, and like I know that my story is not as crazy as someone else's story. So like, I know that like it's fine. Like, this, like, I need a little help. I need a little assistance. It's okay. I'll get there. Like, thank God I have 1 kid, and now
I say it doesn't matter. Like, me and you have the same story. You know what I mean? Like, everyone's story is an important story, and it doesn't matter the first try or the 100th try or whatever it is. Everyone's story always matters, and like, this was your struggle, you know?
Yeah, 100%. I agree. Like, everyone's story is big to them, but it might not. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I remember going to the doctor. I was like, oh, wow, I can do this. Like, fertility doctor, I've been here. Like, he's just doing a checkup. We're just gonna take it from there. Like, I can handle it. It's fine. So if I get there, 2 months go by, and I go into the office. He's like, hi, how are you? Oh my God, how's your baby? This, that. I think Roger was a year and a half at this point. No, I don't remember exactly. He was like a little over a year and a half. And he's like, okay, let's just we'll do a ultrasound, see what's going on with you. But like, what do you want to do? Do you want to go do letrozole again? Do you want to do IUI? I said, no, you know what? Letrozole worked. Like, joke's on me. Like, my husband was right. Like,
I was just gonna
let's
say,
go back there, you know? Let's avoid conflict and it worked the first time, thank God. Let's do the second time. Okay. Now we go for a sonogram for the ultrasound. And I remember it was like him, the nurse, and like someone else. And they're all silent. I was like, everything okay? And he's like, you're pregnant. I go, what? I go, me?
yeah,
He goes, yeah. He's like, look at that little sack. He's like, you're 6 weeks pregnant. I go,
oh my
what are
God,
you talking about? I'm like, what are you talking about? He's like he was laughing. He's like, doesn't look like you need help from me anymore.
right.
I was like, what? I like didn't know. I couldn't process what he was saying because I thought it was a joke.
No, and you were ready to start letrozole. You're like, okay, let's go. I'm
Yeah,
ready. Let's go.
hey, like, we're at the fertility doctor. We're gonna start the process again. Like, what's the big deal? And he's like, no, you're pregnant.
Yeah.
I'm like, what? Like, I couldn't understand. Like, I couldn't grasp the story. Like the sentence. I was just like, what? What are you talking about? So he's like Mazel tov, like that, like because he's like a religious Ashkenaz guy. What? Like, it was the funniest thing. So I was like,
I feel
okay.
like that. Like you were probably like, no, I'm not pregnant. I can't be pregnant. I didn't even go on the pill yet. I'm not pregnant.
Yeah, I was like no, like what? I literally like this is my reaction. I was just speechless. But he was like, okay, so but because of what happened last time, your numbers were low. Like we want to monitor you still to
Right.
at least 9 weeks. Like I want to make sure everything's kosher. So I'm like, okay. Like I was just like, what are you saying?
Yeah.
So then they take me like to go to the blood test, and it's my nurse again that I had a year and a half ago, and she's like, congrats. I was like,
like I didn't even do anything.
Like I didn't understand what she was like. The whole office was saying congratulations. I was like, I don't even know what you're talking. Like I couldn't grasp it. So I was like, I can't believe it. She's like, thank God. It's like the best news possible, whatever. So I was like, okay, okay, we'll come back in a few days for more blood work, whatever. So I'm like, okay. So I remember like calling my family, and everyone's like I call my husband. He's like, what? Like everyone had the same reaction of like,
right.
Like
especially because you went to the fertility doctor.
Like
you were.
I literally went to the fertility doctor.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I'm ready. I can't prevent. Like I'm going by myself. Like, I'm totally okay. Like I can handle this. I had been here, done this, and then I got this news, and I'm like, what? Thank God, all my numbers like kept going up. They released me again. They're like, I'm like, thank you. They're like, thank you for what? We literally did nothing. Like, we just monitored you. Like, they're like, congrats. I'm like, it was just funny because it was just like unbelievable.
Right. Yeah. It was literally unbelievable.
Yeah, like literally. 8 months later, I had my 3-year-old Steven, the craziest child of my life, like takes over my life. I love him. Then Corona comes. He's like a little over a year. I'm like I'm not like this is the biggest birth control of life. Like I don't like maybe I just want to have 2 kids. Like I don't know. I don't know. Like am I really gonna start? Like I couldn't think about another one, like being home and this and that, but like I was like I would always laugh, like think like, okay, I can handle my 2 boys. Like I think we're good. Like my husband's like, yeah, we're good. Like we're good with 2 kids. We were just like both laughing about it. And then last year, so it's like after the 5 months of like unknownness, I'm home. I'm like not trying, like I don't know, like I just kept saying like, okay, maybe this year I'll have a baby. Like I wasn't like thinking like, okay, tomorrow, next, I don't know. I just said like, okay, like maybe after the summer I'll start trying. And I was like, no, I don't know. Well, joke's on me because I wasn't trying and I got pregnant. And
went to the doctor? Or no, you just
no, I didn't go to fertility. I didn't go anywhere. Like I just I don't know, like my period was late, but I wasn't really thinking about it. Like I was just like busy, like busy with like basics, and I was just busy with life and the kids, and I don't know, like I had a kid, like my Stephen was home still, like he was young, and I was like I didn't think anything.
Wow.
And then like I don't know, like I think my husband brought it up to me or I brought it up, like we both like kind of said like wait, like I haven't had my like we both like realized, and like I remember he was sitting on my bed, and like I took a test, and I was like panicking, so I was like no, I'm not pregnant, like no, like what. And 5 months ago I had my third boy, Benjamin.
Like a third boy, I can't. He's so cute.
Like
That's
totally
oh.
unexpected, but like thank God, like
Yeah.
I didn't even, like the thought of like going through, like it never even crossed my mind. Like I wasn't there yet. Like I wasn't even thinking about it. I wasn't trying, like I wasn't even like at the point of like, okay, am I gonna go for the third? Like I just didn't even think about it, and just Hashem, like it just happened.
Right. Wow. That's crazy. And were you like, do you ever look back at the first one and you're like, I can't believe that's what I went through, and then this happened to me, and like do you
Like
have
that life? Yes, it was 6 years ago, 6.5 years ago. Like was the longest year of my life. Like I remember each visit. I remember every day so vividly, like it was yesterday.
yeah.
But I'm also like, I can't explain it. Like it's crazy because I really remember everything perfectly, but it's like also like it feels like a journey ago. Like cause so many things have happened, like getting pregnant the last two are like totally unexpectedly. Like it was just like
Right.
wow. Like
Wow. That's
I
crazy.
have no like the
No,
craziest thing.
it's such an interesting story because I mean, obviously the point of this live was like you're not jumping into an egg retrieval the minute you walk into your doctor's office, and like the story really
No,
epitomized. Like I took letrozole, I got pregnant on the first try. I had to go to a fertility doctor. It was scary for me, but it worked out with such a just I needed a push. I needed someone to just go like that to me, and then I was able to get pregnant. It's so nice.
like some like
Yeah.
a little bit of assistance, and that's all you need.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't always have to be the most extreme, but also doesn't take away from like needing help.
No, exactly. Like you said that line. It was great. You said like it's big to you. It was at the time
Yeah,
biggest
story,
yeah.
like compared to like everything else, like not everything else, but like obviously compared to like so many other like scenarios, like it's light, and like I thank Hashem every day because like I don't know if I could do that year again and again. Like it was very like when you're in it, it's hard. Like it
Yeah.
really is very hard, and like it's funny. Like SBH fertility like wasn't around then. Like would I have called? Like I don't even know. Like yeah. Like if I didn't have my friends, I'm sure I would have.
Right.
Like, but it's all about support. Like if I didn't have friends to lean on or to talk to, also like some of my friends like don't even know what fertility is, and like
Right.
BH, like but it's definitely like support is really what you need. Like even if it's something of just like, oh, I need to go take a blood test at 6 a.m. They're like, okay, you could do it. Even those words are just so encouraging in the moment, because it's like
Yeah.
just
Exactly.
the whole thought of like the unknown of what, when you walk into a fertility doctor, and the unknown of the future is so like,
Yeah.
it's like, it's really like, it hits you, like it's traumatizing because you don't know what's going to be. Is this going to be a 1 month process? It's going to be a 10-year process. Like you just don't know. And it's like
No, but it's
talking to any,
why this is nice to hear from someone like you, where it's like it wasn't a 10-year process, and it was this
right,
process, and it was big for me, but it worked out for me, and now you have 3 beautiful, healthy baby boys, not baby boys, but boys, and that's amazing, and that's so here. But
yeah,
yeah,
no, like thank Hashem how
but
it
really,
worked out.
yeah, no, but thank you for coming on and talking. That's so brave of you. I get it; it's not easy, but you were
Yeah,
amazing.
you're doing it.
And I'm sure everyone appreciates it, and what a nice story you heard, and you're the best, and
Thanks for,
thanks for coming on. We'll see you later.
thanks for
Bye.
having me.
Now we're gonna add Dr. Alexis Melnick, and she's gonna basically go through all the medical situations, and I need to go to a fertility doctor. What's going to happen? So I'm going to add her on now. Give me a minute. Here we go. Hi.
Hi, how are you?
So nice to see you like face to face. We only talked on the phone or through email, so it's like nice to see you. Thanks
Thanks
for
for having me.
Thanks for joining us. I'm so excited to hear this part because I love like medical things. So it's going to be amazing. Okay, so I think let's just start from the beginning. A girl, when do they have to go to a fertility doctor? When should they start seeing a fertility doctor? From let's say they're at their OB. Like at what point do they come to you?
It's very variable. I mean, I think there's never a wrong time. There's never a right time. I would say more and more the general OBGYNs are going to refer out to a fertility doctor. So I think it can be very scary to hear, I have to go see a fertility doctor. Why? And a lot of the reason is that in the way medicine works today, things are so subspecialized that most of the general OBGYNs are not really comfortable doing all of the fertility, or they'll say, look, you have the infrastructure, you have the resources to do the daily monitoring, to do blood work, to get results back quickly. So very often patients are sent to us very, very early. So I think that's one freaks patients.
What's early? What's considered early?
It could just be, hey, I've been trying for a couple of months and nothing's going on. And, you know, a lot of patients say, what do you mean to see a fertility doctor? And it may not, and I think we had talked about just because you're going to fertility doctors and you're infertile, it just may mean there's some underlying that we're trying to figure out.
Like Cyndi was talking about the PCOS. Like,
right.
Yeah.
So I think that, you know, if you look at like the textbooks, it'll say for under 35, you want to come in if you've been trying for more than a year. For over 35, less than 6 months, more than 6 months. It's New York. I think very few people are waiting that long. And there are a lot of reasons not to. So one of the big things is that if you're not getting periods regularly or not getting periods at all, obviously you don't want to wait 6 months. You don't want to wait a whole year. You want to come in sooner rather than later. Or if there are other issues or other concerns. So, you know, a lot of what I feel like I do is have people come in, give them some reassurance and say, I'll see you back in a couple of months. And sometimes that's all needs.
Right, because I hear from girls sometimes it's like, oh, no one's gonna see me before a year. Like they'll look at me like I'm a joke, or that I haven't even been trying, or things like that, you know. And I think that's also scary for someone to go to a fertility doctor and then be turned away after making that big move of getting there, you know.
I mean, I think information is really the biggest tool in all of this. So a lot of times just giving patients that information of here's what you need to do. Also, it's a really good time to do a lot of preconception counseling. Have you guys done your genetic screening? Is it the most updated? Are you taking a prenatal vitamin? How are you tracking your cycles? I mean, all of that is very simple, but it's not something that, you know, a lot of people know about.
Right. Okay, that's interesting. So I guess let's get into ovulation. Mm-hmm. Like Cyndi was talking about. I know that some OBs, she was talking about letrozole versus Clomid. I know that some OBs will prescribe Clomid. Do you want to just go a little bit into that and explain that?
Some OBs will feel comfortable giving either letrozole or Clomid. They're similar medications in the sense that they're both oral medications. They are both taken for about 5 days. They both work in really similar ways. Basically, they sort of trick the brain into thinking the ovaries aren't working. So the brain kind of revs up its signal to the ovaries. So kind of just like, I just tell patients like kicking the ovary, like wake up, do your thing. So, and the reason that you choose one over the other can really vary from doctor to doctor, from patient to patient. Some OBs will feel comfortable giving it out for usually like a few cycles. Others will say, you know what, I'd rather you do this and be monitored more closely, because when the OBGYNs give it out, they'll usually say, go home, take this for 5 days early in your cycle, have sex on these days, or use an ovulation kit to see if you're ovulating. That it can work really well. It can also be a little bit confusing for patients. So it's variable. So I think it just depends on your particular doctor, your particular OB. I think if you have an OBGYN who sends you to the fertility doctor, it doesn't mean it's not a red flag. It just means they're not comfortable doing it, or this is just not what they do in their practice.
So that's a good point to make, that just because you're getting sent there, it doesn't mean like, oh my God, you have the worst case scenario that the doctor has ever seen. I guess they're being a little more cautious about the situation.
are cautious, and just the way that medicine is now, especially we're in New York, there's so many specialists, so it's just so easy to send out to a specialist. And oftentimes what I'll hear from the OB-GYNs is, I just figured let me have them start seeing you now because, if they need more down the line, they're already in with you.
They're better with you, right? Okay, so an OB sends me to you. What happens? I come to your office. What's happening?
So the first thing that we're going to do is take a really detailed history. So we want to know, how long have you been trying? What are your periods like? How often are you getting them? Are they heavy? Are they painful? How are you timing when you're having intercourse? Are you using an app? Are you using ovulation kits? Anything you go to a regular doctor would ask: underlying medical conditions, underlying surgery, family history, medications, anything that could, pose an issue from a fertility perspective. And then, so it's usually a really thorough history.
Sorry, do you do that for the men also, like the partner, or it's just
partners there? I mean, it's a lot of times women come alone, but if their partners come, then we ask them these questions. We ask a lot of times they'll FaceTime their husbands in if there's questions we don't know about.
Okay.
And once we do that,
start with the one, and then like if that's, then you move on to the men, or it's both at the same time.
I get the whole history at the same time, because it's like it's easy to kind of forget about the guys a little bit, but they are part of this. So yeah. And it's variable. I think it was interesting how Cyndi was talking and the whole thing with the IUI and not wanting to do it, because that's such a common scenario. And I think it's very easy to think like, I'm going through this, I pick what we do, but it is, so we'll take a really thorough history, and then, depending on what's going on, sometimes already in your head, you kind of have an idea. And then we bring the patient to the exam room. We'll do a transvaginal ultrasound, look at the ovaries, look at the uterus, look at the follicle count. So basically how many eggs are in the ovary. Right. Look at the case where we don't know if someone's ovulating. Is there any evidence the patient may have ovulated? Okay. And then I'll the couple or the patient back to my office to basically kind of recap with what I'm seeing, what I think's going on, and what we're going to do next.
Right. Okay. Wow. So it's a lot's happening in that first appointment. They're getting a lot of information also. Like wow, that's great. So do they have to do their blood tests that are involved, like after that and things like that?
Yeah. So usually after sort of like synthesizing all that information, we'll make a decision of what to do next from a workup perspective. So, I can't speak to everybody. At least for me, I don't necessarily have a whole routine of what I do everything for everyone. So for example, if I have a couple where it's very clear that she has not been ovulating regularly or at all, often I'll say, look, why don't we start some ovulation medications, ovulation induction medications like letrozole, Clomid, give it a couple cycles, see if you get pregnant, and then if nothing happens, then do a little bit more of the workup down the line, check the fallopian tubes, that kind of stuff.
So when they do go on letrozole, though, you put them on the pill, but they, like you said, unlike the OB, they are coming to the office pretty often to get checked.
Yeah, so typically we have you start letrozole or Clomid. You come in for a baseline ultrasound. You come back a week later. And then from there, it really depends on how you're responding to the medication. So it could be, patients always, how many visits? I would say it can be 4 visits. It can be 10 visits. Sometimes you do a dose of letrozole or Clomid. You won't respond, and you have to, do more. And then try to set reasonable expectations with patients. Like, look, we don't know how you're going to respond to this. Right. You try to of the dose and then go up slowly and change as needed. And eventually we can do like an Ovidril, like a trigger shot. We don't have to. It just really depends on the patient. I think giving patients guidance, but also options and information is really helpful in these cases.
Right. Okay. That's so interesting. And so ovulation pills don't work. What's my next step now? I'm freaking out. I'm like, oh my God, this is supposed to work. What's going on? I come to you.
Typically, if I have a couple where there is, the ovulation seems to be the only issue, there's no major risk factors for a sperm issue, there's no major risk factors for a tubal issue, I'll usually say, let's give it 2 to 3 months where we know for sure you ovulated, you timed intercourse correctly. And then at that point, I will typically say, if nothing's working, let's do more of a workup. So what does that mean? That is a semen analysis for the male partner.
That's only done.
It's not always, it's really variable. So, and by the way, some patients will come in and say, I want to do everything now. I just want to do everything up front. I want to know. So you have to really, I think the really interesting part of this job is that you can have two identical patients medically and treat them in very different ways, just going by what.
So you say that it's a lot up to the patient also. Like you want to also make them comfortable being at a fertility doctor, because I'm guessing it's like not an easy experience. So you want to create the most comforting environment for them to be at, where they feel confident in you, doctor, I guess.
Some patients are very overwhelmed by a lot and a lot of testing, and they feel they want to feel like they're doing everything as as sort of like naturally, it's not a great word, but as possible with little intervention. Other patients will say, look, I'm here, I want to do everything. I want all the information up front before we do anything. Right. And you kind of can't really go wrong either way. I think I always tell patients the worst case scenario is you do 2 or 3 cycles of letrozole or Clomid, then we find it on the line, oh, maybe there was a sperm issue and that's why you weren't getting pregnant. And if you're going to be okay with that, then forego the semen analysis. So the additional testing we typically do is a semen analysis, which basically looks at the sperm. It looks at the count of the sperm, the volume of the sperm, the motility, which is basically how fast they're moving, and then the shape of the sperm, which is the morphology. And then we'll often do something called an HSG, a hysterosalpingogram, which is a test that looks at the uterus and the fallopian tube. So basically looking at does the uterine cavity fill with dye? Is it even? Are there any areas that don't fill? And are the tubes open? And that's probably the worst test of anything that we do, which I try to.
Pretty terrible.
There's no way around that. It's a terrible test.
Yeah.
So I always.
But as a doctor, if someone let's say it's my first time coming to your office, do you suggest to do these things right away, or
it depends on the circumstances. If somebody comes in and if you have regular periods and we gauge that you've been timing intercourse really properly for the past couple of months and we still know what's going on, it varies. If it's been 3 months, I might say to you, look, you're, let's say it's 3 months and you're 26. I might say, look, it's been only 3 months. It's not that pregnant. We have this like misconception in our brain that humans are super fertile, and actually we're like the least efficient species from a reproduction standpoint. So some patients I'll say, look, like if I'm still very with you going home and continuing to try for a couple more months, but if you're nervous, if you're anxious, if you want this information, we can do all the testing now.
Oh, wow.
If and it's been a while, then I'll say, look, let's do and there's no issues with ovulation or timing, we'll do the full workup at that time.
Right. Okay. So interesting. So the ovulation pills, letrozole, Clomid is not working. What's your next step?
So as long as the first thing with these medications, you want to make sure the patient's actually responding to them, right? So you have to make sure, is the patient ovulating? So assuming they're ovulating, assuming you do a full workup, you do your semen analysis, you do your HSG, everything that you've done has come up normal, then typically I would talk about adding in an IUI.
Okay.
Basically, everything exactly the same as letrozole, Clomid, but rather than doing the trigger shot, going home and having intercourse, you're doing an IUI the next day, which means that the partner's coming in either the day of or has frozen sperm in advance. We get a sperm sample, we spin it down, it gets concentrated. So basically the best swimmers are selected, and that sperm is basically injected right into the uterus in the office. We still
a higher chance than going home and having intercourse. Yeah,
higher chance, and again, I think you have to adequately counsel patients. It's not gonna make your chances go from to 90%. Nothing is
right. No,
a little bit. And these interventions are the type of things that if they're gonna work, they'll work relatively quickly. So it's not due for a year if it's not working.
Right.
And we also still have patients, we still recommend that they go home and have intercourse the night of the IUI and the next morning, which I think can be very helpful for patients. Because again, a lot of people, particularly I find male partners, feel very much that they want this to feel that they were really involved. So
I get that. So it's crazy because you just described so many things that you do, and you never even mentioned the word IVF. There's so much that can get done and be done for a patient coming to you before getting to IVF.
Absolutely. I mean, fertility treatment does not mean IVF at all. And listen, there are definitely patients where IVF is indicated immediately. If you have a patient with severe male factor issues, if there's, both fallopian tubes are blocked, if there's a genetic issue you need to screen out, obviously you're going to jump to IVF. But I think, at least for me, my feeling is, I'd like to try to be as conservative as possible and get to the same outcome doing as, being
Right.
as basic possible.
Yeah, I mean, that's amazing. Like we were saying before, it's, I guess because of SBH and the people who come on and speak, there's this common misconception that, oh my God, I mean, listen, going to fertility doctor is frightening. It's very scary, but, and like Cyndi was saying, it doesn't have to be a 10-year process. Like you come in and I mean, you sound like an amazing doctor, and like you want to come and you see a patient and you want to see them and you want to help them. No one, fertility doctors aren't interested in keeping you in their office the longest. It's not beneficial for them. They want to help you and they'll do everything possible to help you. And this was amazing. You were so informative. That was amazing. Like I mean, I learned things, and like I've been going to fertility doctor, so that was really awesome. And anything else you wanted to add about any of this?
I think I think also patients really have to be their own advocates. And I think part of that is asking questions. And if something doesn't feel right, or information that you're given doesn't feel like something you're not comfortable with, then, ask, why are you choosing to do this over this? Why are we jumping in this
Right.
direction? Can we take a step back? I don't feel comfortable with this. Because, your doctor has your best interest at heart. But a lot of times we don't know. So, we don't know if something, and also like, just can you slow down for a second?
Yeah.
I'm getting really overwhelmed. Let's
Yeah.
back, in writing for patients so that they have them, so they can go home and everything you said they've read about. Make sure that you're can contact your doctor if you need to. But I just think asking a lot of questions is really important.
Right. No, for sure. That's a very good point. Also, like you said, it can be so overwhelming, like hearing all these medical terms and you have this and that happened to you. And,